and you're looking to take care of your miniatures. It's really good to see everybody. I know you're seeing my screen right now. I didn't want to share my screen quite yet, but I've been having some technical difficulties, but I'm back now. So I'm waiting for everybody to join. Chat box will be open, so please feel free to use it. I love to hear from everybody. Tell me where you're joining from. Hi, Lisa, good to see you. Beth, Allegra, you're third, you're not first. We need to get you first next time. Hey, Denise, good to see you. Awesome, awesome, folks. You cannot imagine how happy I am right now because just 3 minutes ago, I was not ready to go, but I'm ready to go now. So yeah, lots of good things. Also, want to know how many folks are joining for the first time to one of my Meet the Miniaturists talks. If you're a first-time member here, let me know. Please shout out and say hello. And believe it or not, this is late for me because I was having some technical difficulties, but I'm going to get started. I know people are still joining. It takes a little bit of time for folks to come on, but so good to see everybody. First time, definitely put in the chat box if you're joining for the first time. Hey, New Jersey. Hi, Nicole. Chat box is going so fast. I can't read it all right now, but it's so good to see everybody. Awesome. Okay, keep going. Use the chat box. It's going to be open this whole time. This is going to be a really, really, really fun session, like for fun. And before I even start, I do want to say this. Meet the Miniaturist is sponsored by miniatures.com, hbsminiatures.com. If you don't know about miniatures.com, you need to know about them because they've been around since like 1975. They've been supplying dollhouse miniatures, supplies, tools to enthusiasts everywhere for a long time. They know what they're doing. They have a great product range and you need to check them out. And they're offering viewers a discount just specially for you. So if you use the code MTM721, you'll get 20% off scale miniatures and room boxes. And shout out to Donald, who's helping behind the scenes. Thank you, Donald. And if you guys can say thank you too, that really helps and makes him feel good. He's gonna do a lot of the posting of the links. So please, if you like something I say, most of the time we're going to be linking to them. So either screenshot it or click on it while you're watching so you can save it and go back to it later. But I'm actually going to be crediting a whole bunch of makers. So stay tuned. If you like something you see, hey, Victoria, thank you for thanking Donald. So if you like something you see, I'm going to be crediting a lot of makers today. So if you like some of them, definitely click on that link. But before I even get to this Meet the Miniature session, which is all about doll housing in the 2020s. Doll housing is kind of like this new, I think it's kind of a new word. I haven't heard it, but it's kind of new to me. So doll housing has kind of evolved. So I'm going to take you through that in a bit, but I want to do some housekeeping before we begin, which is if you're new to my series, a little bit about me. I am an unapologetic miniaturist, which means I just love miniatures and I do everything I can to promote them everywhere I can. But of course, I sell miniatures and I love selling miniatures and I mostly sell them through estate sales. So heads up, I have an amazing estate sale that's coming up in September. It's going to take me weeks to get this done, which is great because it's such a big estate. But it's also an estate with an amazing story to tell. They are the Buck Alters. They were a couple who lives in upstate New York, and they made miniatures together. They collected together. They went to shows together, and they just had a beautiful eye together for miniatures. And their estate is available now, and it's becoming available at auction. So stay tuned for that. If you have missed any of my Meet the Miniature series, head over to my link. We're going to send you the link to sign up for my updates, but also to my YouTube channel, because that's where I post all of my Meet the Miniaturists seminars and webinars and lectures and all that kind of stuff. So you can go back and watch them on replay. And if you like what you see, you are welcome to contribute to my programming. So you can contribute to the Meet the Miniature series and the development of the series by contributing to my program. So if you like what you see, become a contributor, which makes you become a patron, a part of the Patrons Club. So the Patrons Club is basically exclusive content for the folks who contribute to my series, things like special events, special webinars, exclusive webinars, meets and greets online. So everything's going virtual, of course. So we actually had our first meet and greet, and it was really fun. Everybody got to share a miniature from their collection or a story. So anyway, join my Patrons Club, contribute to my programming, and get in on this Patrons Club. It's a nice group of people, and I'm going to get to a little bit more about the community when I talk about doll housing in a second. So Patrons Club, Meet the Miniaturists replays, head to my YouTube channel. Coming up on my Meet the Miniaturists series, a couple of amazing things. So in addition to some makers that I'll be interviewing, so this Thursday night, a maker called Tracy Eldema, she's from Earth Things. Anyway, she's really, really, really talented. I'm going to be doing Instagram Live with her on Thursday night. So all you need to do is log on to Instagram, and we'll be chatting, Tracy and I, and we're going to be getting to see, her studio space, her work, etc. And then on August 15th, and you're going to want to write this down, it's Sunday, August 15th, I am going to be live from the Museum of Arts and Designs, and I'm going to be doing a very special Meet the Miniaturist. Live from the museum, I will be interviewing the curator of the latest exhibition, which is the Joanna Fisher Dollhouse exhibition. And if you haven't seen it, go check out my blog. I did a blog post on this. But I'm going to be interviewing the curator of the show and a very, very special guest appearance by Joanna Fisher herself. This is going to be awesome. So definitely sign up for my updates, because then you'll know about the links to register. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so I think I got through with all of my background stuff, all my housekeeping stuff. Thank you for staying with me on that. So let's talk about doll housing in the 2020s, because this is awesome. Okay, so everybody can see my screen, right? Link has become a patron. All right. Well, so let's talk about doll housing in the 2020s. If anybody has any specific questions of anything I covered right now, just DM me. I love to hear from you, and I love answering your questions about specifically those things. So look into that. But let's talk about, for now, doll housing in the 2020s. So glad you can see the screen. So a little bit of all right, I know this is so like PowerPointy, but there are a lot of visuals in here. So we're going to do the welcome. I'm going to do a history of doll housing. I'm going to take you through some of the most world famous doll houses in the world, because they're world famous, get it? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the pop culture phenomenon and the success of miniatures today, because we've come a long way, baby. And miniatures are really making their mark in pop culture today. It's a little bit cyclical, this category of miniatures. And so it comes and goes, but right now it is coming. So it's really good. And then I'm going to take you through doll housing today, and hopefully inspire you with some inspiring makers of miniatures and doll houses today, to get you either started on making miniatures or inspire you to continue making miniatures. If you're in the middle of a project, keep going. So this is all about inspiration. Like I said, the chat box is going to be open. I hope to get to everybody. There's hopefully a lot of questions, and I can't get to everybody, which would be a good thing, but I'm going to try to get to everybody. And then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. So let's go. Let's get right to it. So when you talk about the history of doll housing, you really have to go far back. You got to go way back, almost like to the Renaissance era. But if you think about miniatures have been around even before then. But miniatures as we know them, and doll houses, really started in the Renaissance era. And this is one of the most famous Renaissance era doll houses. It's the Petronilla dollhouse. It's on view in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. This is really where it started. It was around the 1500s, the 1600s. And women of a certain social class and these were not children, they were making these extraordinary cabinet houses. Let me go back a second. Extraordinary cabinet houses filled with tiny treasures. Like I said, these weren't made for kids. These were women of a certain social class that were reproducing all their items that they had. Really didn't own anything back then, but they did have ownership of this. And so they would reproduce their treasures from full scale into miniatures. And they would show them off to their friends and their families. And it was sort of like bragging rights. So they would work with a miniaturist in the community, artists, and they would commission them to make things in silver, fine textiles, furniture. So anything you can imagine in full scale was made for them in small scale. So that's really the beginning of it all. If you fast forward to the sort of like the Dutch era in America. This is actually a photograph of what is reported to be the oldest dollhouse in America. And sort of the idea of the cabinet house coming over to the States in the form of a dollhouse, sort of ish, you know, it's got the shape of a house, but not quite yet a dollhouse. So this is a cabinet house of the 1700s. It's located today inside the Van Cortlandt House Museum, which is in the Bronx, New York. So if you ever get to New York, if you head over to this beautiful residence, it's supposed to be the oldest residence in America, or at least New York. Don't quote me on that. But it's also a museum. If you go to this museum, which is a lovely Dutch farmhouse, head up to the attic, and nestled in the back there is this beautiful little dollhouse. We don't think it's filled with as many close to original things, but there are some original things in there. So highly recommend this as part of a visit, if you will, if you ever come to New York. And you know, if you come to New York, write me. I'll give you a list of things you must see, including that. But if you fast forward to sort of the early 1900s, we start to see the dollhouse emerge, maybe for children, maybe makers are making them in their backyards, that kind of thing. Not necessarily mass produced, but definitely started to become part of the culture in America. And so they would be making them custom, but then also some mass manufacturers, that's a really big word, but mass produced in the sense that more than one were made. So companies like Christian Hockey and Moritz Gottschalk in Germany were making these dollhouses for folks all over the world. You fast forward to a little further to like the 1940s. Some of you might recognize this dollhouse. These were graphic printed cardboard dollhouse kits. How many of you have had one of these or have seen one at antique shows? They're quite valuable if you can find them in really, really good condition. But so these are early examples of dollhouses in America, or more mass produced in America. And then you have the tin house. How many of you have seen the tin house or had one of the tin houses? Yes, Barbara is saying she wished she kept it. Yeah, these are not easy to find. They are, if you can find one in good condition, because they're made of metal, so they rusted a lot. People would put them in their attics or in their basements. So if you find one of these at a garage sale, or get it, and if it's in good condition, because they're awesome. They're awesome. And sort of, this is really a slice of Americana. It's really when the early examples of doll houses in America, not doll housing. I'm going to get to what doll housing is in a little bit, but then you fast forward again to the 70s, 60s, 70s. This is the more people know this. This is a dollhouse kit. This is what people think of when they think of dollhouses in America. And some of these kits are around today by some really, really great companies. So, similar styles, similar kits. They're around today because they're classic designs, classic architectural styles made of really good materials. And probably most of us on the line will remember this, and we'll reflect back to that sort of dollhouse kit as what we remember as dollhouses. But I can't talk about dollhousing without sort of taking a second to reflect on some of the more extraordinary dollhouses, if you will, in the world. This is an example of one of the throne rooms. It might not be quite a dollhouse, but I can't talk about miniatures and dollhouses without talking about the iconic throne rooms out of the Art Institute in Chicago. Some of the most extraordinary examples of miniatures on the planet. This is the Stettheimer. This is actually part 2 of a trilogy of New York City miniatures to see if you're coming, and that Van Cortlandt House Museum was one of them. This is the other one. It's the Stettheimer dollhouse. And quite honestly, Carrie Stettheimer was a socialite in the early 20s, and she built this dollhouse, and she got all her friends to make things for it. And I think this is one of the earliest examples of doll housing in America. The whole idea of putting all the pieces together to create something extraordinary, whether it is of museum quality, or if it's something that you're doing at home, something you're doing with your children, something you're putting together and creating. So doll housing has emerged to be a completely different thing, and I'm going to take you through that. But let's continue on with some of the more extraordinary dollhouses in America. This is actually a fairy castle, and this is the Colleen Moore Fairy Castle, which is at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And then finally, this is Faith Bradford. And this is a classic example of a dollhouse. From I think the 60s. This is located at the Smithsonian. It's a little disappointing when you get to see it, it's not really quite lit up like this. But yet still, it is a great example of a dollhouse in America, and you can go see it at the Smithsonian. So I do recommend it. And then, I'm sorry, it wasn't final. This is final. This is the Queen Mary dollhouse, which is in Great Britain. It is probably one of the most extraordinary dollhouses in the world. This is going to be the final, sorry. I wanted to bring up the Joanna Fisher dollhouse. So this is a Joanna Fisher dollhouse. It's at the Museum of Arts and Designs. I think I mentioned that I will be live streaming from the museum in a couple of weeks. But I think this is a great example of dollhousing today, but harkens back to the time when the socialites were putting together their houses, whether it was the Narcissa Blackthorne doing the Thorne rooms, the Stettheimer Colleen Moore. So Joanna Fisher today is sort of bringing that back, creating these heritage pieces, these awesome dollhouses filled with tiny treasures. So I wanted to put this on the list because I think we're going to be talking about this dollhouse for a long time. So with that, let's talk a little bit about how dollhouses have emerged to the pop culture phenomenon success that it is today. So one of the reasons why I sort of call out, the popularity of dollhouses and why we're seeing it emerge as a sort of a phenomenon is because it's used so often lately in media, whether it's television, film, commercials. More and more, producers are deciding to use miniatures as a way of grabbing your attention. And we already know, because we're here right now enjoying, talking about miniatures, that miniatures have a way of just grabbing your attention. So producers and writers are catching in on that, or not cashing in on that, but they're using that to their advantage and creating a lot of media content around miniatures. And that sort of is spreading out to the masses, which of course raises the awareness and the attention of miniatures, gets people involved in miniatures, and creates this phenomenon that we're seeing today, that I'm seeing today. So this is an example of the magazine House Beautiful, which created a whole campaign around this concept of dollhouse beautiful, getting a whole bunch of interior designers together to create a dollhouse in their own style. So really, this is a great series. I would recommend it on YouTube. There are about 11 of them. They're very short, but they're really interesting. But my point here really is the fact that television, film, movies are starting to use, and have been using, but much more often now, using miniatures to help create content, help tell a story. This is Toni Collette in a movie of 2018, which is Hereditary. Now, granted, dollhouses get used a lot in these spooky films, but not always. They're being used in music videos today, lighter and airier and more fun than just, the spookiness. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'll take like one quick drink breath if someone has a quick question so far on what I've talked about. But while you're loading that, because it takes a while, no bigger example, no bigger tell of, the sounds keeps dropping, I'm sorry. So no bigger example of miniatures becoming a pop culture phenomenon is the use of miniatures on television. So I don't know if anybody has seen this, but HGTV created a television show. It was a reality-based competitive show late last year around the Christmas holidays called Biggest Little Christmas Showdown. It was awesome. It was, I think it was a 5-part series. Yours truly was on it. Go check it out. I think you have to download the app, but it's really the first time we've seen miniatures on commercial television, on a television show. We're starting to see even more of that happen, not only here in the US, but around the world. And that is great news, because what that does is it raises the profile of miniatures. It gets more of us interested in it, gets more artists involved. It just creates much more opportunity for us to continue to, quote unquote, play in this category. Okay, so Biggest Little Christmas Showdown, look for that. And actually what's happening right now is NBC just launched, it's a full-on game show, but it uses miniatures as the vehicle for all of the competitive things that they need to do to win. There's a word for that. Somebody can help me. Anyway, it's called NBC Small Fortune. It actually started out in the UK. It was so popular there that NBC brought it here. I don't know if it's doing as well here, but anyway, go check that out. But these are examples of why I think the miniatures world today is just exploding with so much interest and stuff happening. So look for that. I don't know what that is. Somebody put a Google search in. I don't know what you're trying to do. Oh no. Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay, good. All right. But there's no better way to talk about doll housing today than to really show you. And as you can imagine, I spend a fair amount of time on social media. I mean, it's great that I love this world of miniatures, but I spend a lot of time on social media because it's my job and I love it. So I get to constantly look for what's happening in the miniatures world. And and one of the reasons why I think this world is exploding and why I think doll housing is becoming such this great phenomenon is because there are so many makers out there who are stretching the limits of what can be. This is not your grandma's dollhouse. This is not. So this is Olga Serino. We're going to put her link in there. She's an amazing interior designer. You would not believe this is miniature. And so this is one of the examples of really the makers who are pushing the envelope out there. But that's not to say that there are everyday achievable things that we can do to become part of this doll housing effort. So this is One Brown Bear, and she does some beautiful, beautiful work in contemporary styling. And I think that's another reason why I think we're breaking through in the doll housing world, because it's not about Victorian anymore. Although, we stepped away from Victorian. Everybody's like, oh no, Victorian is old. That's my grandmother's. Oh my God, Victorian's like totally coming back. It's like everything comes back. But right now, most of what I'm showing you is sort of contemporary, modern, the modern stuff. So this is also One Brown Bear. Jean is asking how we can access all the websites you have posted on the chat page without stopping watching me. I don't know. I think you're gonna have to screenshot the page or click on it while you're watching me, so it opens up another file. I'm wondering how else I could do this, but yeah, I think you have to screenshot it. Take a picture of it with your phone. Dagmar out of Australia, she's wonderful, and she has doll houses, but she does a lot of room boxes. And she's a really wonderful. She pulls all of the pieces together wonderful, and she's got a little modern aspect to it. And then, oh my God, Gemma from Mini Made Home. She's on Instagram, very, very active Instagrammer. Lots of pop of color, lots of ways of playing with scale and design, really, really bringing doll housing into this era and beyond. So check her out. Jacqueline over at Wildwood Miniatures, much more of like a farmhouse feel. And I think that's one of the really, really great things about doll housing today is because all of the options available in terms of pulling together materials, product, whether it's a chair or, and I'm going to get into a little bit more about what happens now that I love miniatures. What do I do? Or now I want to be into doll housing. What do I do and how do I do it? But there are a lot of options today that make it much more accessible to be doing what I'm showing, what some of these makers are doing today. Ivona over at Artsy Miniatures just has a wonderful way of sort of mixing and matching and sort of really pushing the envelope on design and also scale to some extent. Dear Jose, again, Instagrammer, wonderful, wonderful, beautiful designs. Julie over Jowl Miniatures, love her colors, love the graphics, love the pop of color everywhere. And I think, again, that is what I think doll housing is today. It's not only just about putting that living room together. It's pulling all of the pieces together to make it a wow living room. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see the difference? And also, playing, quote unquote, I hate to say that, playing meaning taking some risks. The end of the day, we have so much more accessibility to resources. You can actually afford to some extent to make some design choices. Go get the 3 pieces of paper at Joann's, 3 different wallpaper designs, and try all 3 of them. You can, because it is accessible and it's relatively affordable. I don't want to predispose or whatever. Just do it. All right. So Rosa I don't know if you guys know who Rosa is at Simply Living Mini Designs. She is awesome. She has an interior design background, so she definitely has some of those skills to pull some of these rooms together. And like I said, she like my friend from Australia, mini property developer. They're interior designers and they have that sort of those skills, but they work a lot in boxes. So doll housing doesn't only have to be about working in a traditional dollhouse. I have 4 rooms, 6 rooms, 8 rooms. I'm going to do each room. No, you just can get a box. You can get a box, whether it's a cardboard box, a wine box, and just go decorate it. That is what doll housing is about today. This is another example of Gemma. I think I mentioned her from Mini Made at Home. Again, I love her colors. I love is it Amy Winehouse in the back? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Check her work out. She's pretty great. I think this is also One Brown Bear. Love her work. Ailey's house. She not all, well, some of these makers, they're really, really talented, but they're also very, very adept at photographing their work. And so that's probably, that is bringing this stuff to life. They really, really know how to do it. And that's why I love their work. I not only work, I love their photography and all that kind of stuff. And then finally, I think it's finally Jessica Chloe. I believe she's got a business selling miniatures, but she really has a really nice design eye for contemporary miniatures. And I think she is a great example of an influencer in the dollhouse world, really encouraging and inspiring us to do some great things in miniature. And then finally, this is Missy Miniature. She's also out of Australia. She's just got a really, really keen design eye, pulls all the pieces together beautifully. She also is a maker, and I believe she sells her miniatures. So check her out. A lot of her work she either sells the full-on miniatures or she laser cuts kits and she sells the kits. So look for her. Those are some of the individual rooms that I've sort of love, and some of the makers that I love. But in terms of the ones who are really focusing on traditional dollhouse, room, these are some of my all-time favorites. They're by no means, this is a short list because we only have a half hour, but these are some of my all-time favorites. This is Anna over at Little House of Lights. I just love how all of the rooms come together so beautifully. I like the contemporary modern aspect of it. She's got an open plan design. Who does that? The kits didn't have that. I think you have to sort of bring it upon yourself to say, I'm not going to put that wall in. I'm going to have an open floor plan. So really playing to make this look like it does. This is Nicola Ruckman. I just love how she uses some of those, the graphics and the papers. I talk a little bit about papers. The Michaels and the Joannes, they have walls filled with paper, graphic papers. How much fun is it to sort of, play and get the papers, get different designs, mix and match. And I think this Nicola really does a great job with that. Taylor Poor is a Brooklyn-based, he's one of my favorite makers. He's so talented. You really should check out him on Instagram. I want him to do, I invited him to come and do a special, come in and chat for a few minutes. But he's got a really, really great eye for design and a fun, whimsical approach to doll housing. He doesn't take it too seriously. And I think that's probably one of the things we need to do when we sort of decide to do a project like this, because it is quite an undertaking when you decide to do a dollhouse or get into doll housing. Don't take it so seriously. Have fun, make mistakes, change things around. Don't glue anything down ever anyway. But Taylor really, really does a great job with a whimsical approach to all of his miniatures. I definitely recommend checking his website out, his Instagram account, so you can see some more in-depth photographs of his dollhouse. But also, I did a Meet the Miniaturist with him, so you can check out Replay. He's great to talk to. Just a really, really creative, wonderful maker. I can't talk any more highly about Taylor. Jen Son, she's relatively new in terms of a maker that I have found recently. What I love about her, and this goes back to a little bit of the Victorian era, you see some of those graphic print wallpapers, the sort of the older time lights. And I think one of the things that makes this doll housing maker so successful is not only the design aspect, but the use of lighting. This Meet the Miniatures is not specifically about how to dollhouse, but, and I'm actually planning to do a whole session on lights. So stay tuned. Sometime in August, I'm going to be doing a whole session on lights, but lighting brings it all to life for sure. And you don't have to use a transformer today. You can use LED lighting, but more on that later. This is Huizi Haniki, and I'm sure I messed up that name. What I love about this maker and her doll housing, or he, could be a he, is just the simplicity approach, the clean white lines, the gentle colors. You know, it's not really in your face. It's very, very approachable and light, and I love that. And then there's Mom of 8 Minis. Again, this is one of my favorite makers. Check her out. You know, there is a bluish tint to this, but I think that's sort of what the lighting, but really I'm looking at the contemporary approach, which is why this doll housing maker it does so well. It's just mixing and matching those pieces that are contemporary and not sticking to the tried and true, the Victorian, which I love the Victorian. All right, don't get me started. All right, Chloe Mays, Homemade Hermits, another one of my all-time favorites. Believe it or not, this is an unfinished look at her dollhouse. It's actually from a kit, and I forget the name. Beacon Hill. Anyway, it's from a kit. She's a tattoo artist from New Zealand, a really, really, really talented maker. Not only does she make all her stuff, but she just you can really get a lot of inspiration from her. And I would recommend checking her out on Instagram. So we're gonna go back to, let me finish this up and then I answer Barbara's question because it's a really good question. Kathy from Orlando, Florida, Tiny Turks. This is a newish maker that I found recently. What I like about this maker is really the design approach, which is this monochrome blue and white, which I really, really like. This is more of a design choice as opposed to, you know, some of my favorite makers, but I really do that. I do love that white on white. I love that approach. It makes things very easy. So that is something you would think about if you're starting a doll housing project, but I also think that is what brings doll housing in to the world. It's, you know, in the past, you weren't making these big design choices about what is going to be my approach to doll housing. Is it going to be a farmhouse, country chic, Victorian? We didn't think about those things 20 years ago. Now we do, because again, there's so many options, so many choices available. Back to Jessica Chloe, great maker, really love her work. Vicki Lynn, how many of you know who Vicki Lynn is? Pink Paradise 808. Oh my God, you have to check out her Instagram. So this is her dollhouse. Obviously, everything in it is a pink and white, but everything in her house is pink and white. Everything in her house has this dreamy, dreamlike quality. Every dish, every plate. Highly recommend you checking this out because she is over the top, wonderful. Just go check it out is all I have to say. This is what doll housing is all about in America today. And then Mary Kay, I'm not really sure. This is just an example of how we're moving back to Victorian. This is, and I love it. I love it. I just love it. So that is a little bit about doll housing, both from an interior design aspect and then a full-on doll house, you know, if you will. I'm going to go to Barbara. She had a question. Do you know of any online classes to create furniture or accessories for our own doll houses? Yes, I do. And my first suggestion would be to check out the igma.org site, igma.org. They are starting to do online virtual classes. I've taken one myself. It was awesome. But I'm going to get to, in a second, resources, which includes the availability of tons of tutorials and how-to on YouTube. But before we get there, I do want to take you through what is you know, another aspect of doll housing. You know, it's not only about making the dollhouse and crafting the dollhouse and finding all the pieces for the dollhouse, but it's also about showcasing the dollhouse. And what's so wonderful about the dollhouses today is you can incorporate them into your design, into your decor, into your rooms, into your living room, into your dining room, into your bedroom. I would put them everywhere. That's what I would do. But I think you do have to have a fair amount of thinking behind it. Like this dollhouse obviously works very well in this dining room. The colors are right. the feeling and flavor work together. But it's another aspect of doll housing and bringing it into your life, bringing it out from the shadows, bring it out of the craft room, show it as part of your life and part of your decor. So now you've been so inspired, I hope. So I want to get on the fun. And like I said, this is not only for people who have been in the world already, for newbies. You could be, this information that I'm going to share or what I've already shared, hopefully encourages all of you, no matter where you are on the spectrum of doll housing today. But I think what's so great and why the world is so great in miniatures today is because it's so much more accessible and it's so much more, the community is so much bigger and wider and together. And I know in this very polarizing Facebook world, the communities, the groups on Facebook are really, really wonderful, safe places where people can go not only to learn about miniatures, but get advice from other miniatures, learn about what's happening, learn about classes. So to Barbara's question about online classes, all of that information is very, very accessible to you on any one of these really, really highly trafficked Facebook community group pages. And I have my own that I manage. Allegra Klein, who's on here right now, helps me administrate that. Thank you, Allegra, as always, for all your help. But we administrate a site called Mini Friends. I think we have a link. So I really encourage you to use Facebook for the ways it is really, really great to use it, which is these online community groups. They're really, like I said, very, very safe spaces, very well managed. There's no crap, I promise you, on most of them, because the administrators are really, really good at making sure things stay really, really healthy. But I talked a little bit about tutorials. There's a wealth of tutorials online, not only to learn how to make miniatures if you want to learn how to make miniatures, if you want to make the miniatures for your dollhouse or for your room box or your shadow box, but you get a lot of inspiration from these tutorials. And you learn a lot while they're chatting with you and telling you how to make something. So I highly recommend just going in and typing in miniatures on YouTube, and you will see a wealth. And I just called out a couple of them. Sugar Charm Shop, she's wonderful. Petit Palm is amazing. Rena Velcure, oh my God, she is breakthrough. Rena is breakthrough in terms of her abilities to make miniatures, but also to teach you how to make them. Whoa, check her out. And then finally, Square to Spare. She's awesome. So check those guys out. And then finally, another really, really great way to get involved in this category, if you aren't already involved, there are so many places online to buy miniatures. And right there in the center, yes, they're a sponsor, but miniatures.com is a great resource. They're probably the largest resource where you can go to find miniatures to buy. So check them out. Big plug for them, but also it's a great company. I get their catalog every month or every other month, and it's one of the things I make sure I go through because, for me, it's about having it in my hand and reading through it. But anyway, miniatures.com, another great place. Etsy, Facebook Marketplace. If you are looking for a low-cost way to buy a dollhouse, check out Facebook Marketplace, because there are lots of people who are getting rid of their dollhouses, and they're a great resource to find one in your own local community to go and pick up and bring it into your life and your world. Craigslist is another one. eBay is great. And don't forget the traditional bricks and mortar shops. There aren't that many left in the country today, unfortunately, but there are pockets of them around the country. And the ones that are left are really, really healthy, meaning they have really nice inventory of product. They're also very knowledgeable, and they're also very open to chatting with you and answering any of your questions. So check them out. This happens to be Miniature Seller either in Atlanta or I'm not sure where that photograph is stuff, but there's Miniature Seller in Atlanta, and there's another place in Ohio. Someone online knows it. Rosemary is in Ohio, but those are just two of a few that are left that I would recommend that you go check out, because they're awesome and they're really, really great ways to get involved in this category. And then, of course, finally, the yard sale. You could always check out the yard sale. So that brings us to the end of this presentation. But as always, doll housing and miniatures, minis make us happy. Minis make happy, hashtag. Get it? Let me see if you have any other questions, you guys. But I hope that this has inspired you guys. If you are already involved, or you're not, or you're just getting involved, what do you guys think? I'll take a few questions while we're wrapping up. There was a Q&A. Would you do a session on tips for taking photos? I don't know. I might. That might be an interesting one, Lenita. Because there is, as with everything, there's an art and there's always a better way to do something. So I will definitely look into that. I think it could be really interesting. All right, so wait, the questions are coming in crazy fast. Oh, Atlanta, thank you, Alexia. That was Atlanta, you were just there. There is another one in Glendale, Arizona, Annie M's, very nice. Miniature Seller is in Ohio. That is Roseanne. Check her out. Check your text, thank you. Oh, that's Donald. Okay. San Diego Miguel's Peggy. Great. If you guys have recommendations, put them in right now. There is a woman who has small house press. She has a map and she showcases all of the different places you can go shop today. Put them here. I'm gonna Ron's miniature store in Orlando. That's a good one. Miniature Cottage. That's a good one. Good. Definitely put it in there, because I'm going to go through these and read them. And I'm going to, like I said, there's a girl who has a website who has a map that shows you where they all are. And I'm going to join with her and give her all this information. She does a really great job. Miniature Designs. That's great. Out of Atlanta. Little Dollhouse Company, Toronto. They're great people. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up? Have you explored the Friedman miniature houses in mobile? No. Yes, I have heard of them. I think I did a Facebook post about the Friedman miniature houses. Yes, they're awesome. Tanisha wants to start a business and doll housing. Tips or suggestion? That's a loaded question. But I would recommend one thing: have the most fun you can with it. That's all I have to say, and enjoy. How do we contact you for New York locations? Lori, just send me a DM and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Convention's coming up. I'm so glad you actually asked that, Diana, because the Guild Show is coming up in September. Guild School is happening right now. And if you don't know about Guild School, it's the annual trek to Castine, Maine. The best teachers on the planet, students, 100 students plus, get together and take classes all week. I will be doing a live stream Instagram Friday night from the school graduation. See, I have so much to tell you, but that's why I say just make sure you link to get my updates so you know what's going on. But I'm going to be going live to graduation at Guild School on Friday night to check out all the students' work. Check it out. I've been Ginger's been building dollhouses since 1972. Yes, it is thrilling that the hobby is so popular again. And like I said, it's cyclical. And there's no question COVID had a lot to do with boosting the miniatures world to popularity today, but it was on its way. It was growing before COVID. COVID just kicked it all in. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I'm so glad I got the technology right. Thank you to hbsminiatures.com for sponsoring this event. This has been really, really, really fun. And thank you all at home for joining. I'm so glad you could make it. I'm so glad the technology worked. Thank you, HBS. Thank you, Donald, behind the scenes. And yeah, I'll see you all at the next, Meet the Miniatures, which Instagram is Thursday and Friday, but live stream from the museum. So I'll see you then.